everybody, I'm Pragya. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm bringing to you a story from the deaf world. I will be joined by a CODA, Jugneet Kaur. CODA stands for Child of Deaf Adult. Till now we have been talking about deaf people and the use of Indian Sign Language. But today we'll be talking about the struggles of somebody who's a close relative to a deaf person. In this case, Jugneet Kaur, both of whose parents are deaf. Before Jugneet joins us, there's a word of caution that I want to share with you, and that is, please don't assume her story to be the story of every CODA. Every CODA, every person is different and they face different challenges and different struggles. So her story is her story alone, and while it will have similarities and it will have similar struggles to other close relatives of deaf people, but it won't be identical. Hi Jugneet, welcome to my channel. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for calling me.
Our audience would love to know more about you. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Jugneet Kaur. As you already know, I am a CODA and my parents are deaf. Right now, I'm working towards the same cause, that is, awareing people about Indian Sign Language and what CODAs are people surrounded with deaf people and deaf people's struggles are. I work it through, Instagram reels and all.
That's amazing. And I'll add the link to her Instagram channel in the description. Please go and make sure to check her content, learn from it, and definitely give it a So, Jugneet, we'll start with a very basic question. How do you communicate with your parents?
Okay. Many people ask me this whenever they get to know that, my parents are deaf. So there's one language called Indian Sign Language that we use specifically in India. And this is basically a sign language that's done between, two people for the communication for deaf people. So I've learned it from my parents. I have seen them signing. So generally you catch these words. I've been in that surrounding. So that's how I learned the language.
So like any other child who learns their mother tongue from their parents, be it a spoken language, Hindi, English or Punjabi, similar for a sign language. A hearing child or a deaf child can learn sign language from their parents just by observing, just by being part of those conversations. Since both your parents are deaf and you are a hearing child, to others in the hearing world, to most of the times, other people in your family or outsiders rely on you to talk to your parents, or do your parents rely on you to communicate with a third person who's hearing?
Okay, so if I talk about very general things like groceries or when they go out to take things or, for basic amenities, it's not that I am the interpreter for them. They do it themselves. But if it is like the doctor thing, somewhere if they have a very serious issue, then I obviously go with them to interpret things for vice versa, even for the doctor as well as for my parents. And if it's about, groceries and all, I generally don't do it. And for people, if they meet somebody who, does not know the sign language or haven't met my parents, then I have to be the interpreter. It's like as basic if my friends meet my parents, if they say something, so I interpret it. But generally, I don't. Both of my parents are very much independent in these terms. They don't rely on me or my elder sister for that matter.
Today I wanted to know a little about your struggles and what are the challenges that you face being a hearing child of a deaf?
So first of all, I'll repeat that my challenges are very much different, and what I faced was different because I grew up in a different environment. When I was a child, like when I was in school early years, it was like I used to hate going to PTMs just because everybody used to be like, they were used to stare at us, and especially when my parents are signing at me. So I used to be the interpreter between the teacher and my parents, and I used to interpret everything my parents used to tell me to interpret to, so that they could tell my teachers those things, and interpreting the same thing my teacher used to tell me. And things were different when, I used to go to a supermarket or some public places. Whenever you used to sign with them, everybody used to stare at us, and somebody used to come and tell me, oh, are they deaf? I was like, yeah, they are. Okay, so are they born deaf? I was like, yeah, they were born with a deafness. So they're like, okay, ye baba hai, you can go to them and have some medicine they'll give you, or some tantrics and everything, that they'll do something and they'll be absolutely fine with it. And I was like, okay, but we are completely fine with this whole situation. I don't think we need to go to some tantric or some baba for this. And when I was a child, I always used to be really ashamed, embarrassed mostly, that I don't want to talk in sign language with them. I don't want to talk, to them. I don't want to interpret anything. But when I used to come back home, I used to tell them every story. This happened, that happened. They told me this, and this is the whole scenario. But now it's completely different. It's completely opposite. Now I'm much more comfortable with my identity as a CODA and my parents' identity as being deaf. Yeah.
It must be scary, by the way, going to a PTM and having to interpret for your parents. कि डांट पड़ने वाली है अभी, लेकिन do you choose to filter these things out also at times that okay नहीं छुपा दिया मैंने कभी या कुछ?
Okay, no, I've always been a very good student, so I never had complaints. So I never have to, tell them कि नहीं उन्होंने तो कुछ नहीं बोला. Not something. I never used to do that, because obviously my parents used to understand with the expression of my teachers as well. If they would be scolding me, they would have that expression of thoda seriousness and all. But if they are smiling, so my parents understand कि okay, it's not something serious, so it's absolutely fine. That even if my teacher is sitting in front of me, he'll also know that if I'm telling the truth or not. So that's never something that I did.
And there must be times, like you mentioned, that grocery incident, that there must be other times also where people view you or your family differently, because there's a certain othering because of the differences. They might look at you differently. Does that cause any navigational issues or any issues or challenges that at times as a daughter you feel concerned about, or you think that that's a struggle that you want to help your parents with, but you might not be able to in every situation?
Yeah, okay. So if I talk about as simple as, when very basic thing as a daughter, sometimes you hear people say certain stuff about your parents because they know that parents can't hear it, obviously. But behind the back, sometimes they say something, and we or me or my sister, we have heard things about our parents, and used to feel always like, okay, why they're talking about, such negative things about our parents. And sometimes, to be honest, I used to feel like, okay, I am not able to help them as much as I can. Example, like I was in my university, I was staying in a hostel, and my mom needed me at that time because with some phone calling or something that happened, like a courier guy was visiting them, and she kept sending me messages and everything, please call him and tell him that I am there or I'm not there. So I was in my class, I was not able to see at that message or call her back or video call her at that time. Half an hour later, when I went out of my class, it was over. I went out, I told my mom I was in class. She was like, okay, but I did somehow. Even though I was proud that, okay, she did it on herself, but somewhere or the other still felt like, being far away somewhere or the other hinders me. Maybe, because I'm not available for them at that point.
Is there a guilt attached to not being there?
Yeah. Not every time I feel guilty, because at point I feel like I cannot be always be with them. I need to obviously move out of my house someday. I need to do my graduation, my studies and everything. But I feel it's good for them as well because it makes them independent. But somewhere when it's very necessary, and at that point I am not there with them or my sister is not there with them, it feels little guilty that, I'm not being there with them. Why can't I help them out? If I know I have the means to help them out, but because of some or the other reason I'm not there, and I start feeling guilty. Okay, why? Why right now all of this is happening?
Your sister is also hearing?
Yeah, she's also hearing.
And what about other people in your family? Does anybody else in your family use sign language, or do your parents feel that they need an interpreter to talk to other hearing people within your family also?
Okay, so the very close relatives. They don't need me to interpret things. They have a very good communication with my parents. So I don't need to be an interpreter, but very far relative maybe, or somebody who's new to the family. Maybe sometimes I just need to clear it out ki what the other person is saying, or maybe I tell other person what my parents are saying rather than doing the other way around. My parents generally understand what other people are talking because of lip reading, or they understand, what other person is trying to ask and not. If not, obviously me or my other relatives or my family members are there to clear things out, or, just tell them this is the flow of the conversation.
That's very good to know. That at least people in their close circles are including them, because we have heard stories about how deaf people a lot of times are isolated within their own families. So it's very good to know that your family is not one of them and you have a inclusive space around yourself. Uh, sure, a lot of times people talk about deafness or any other disability as something that needs to be cured.
Yeah,
That's tantric example.
exactly.
That ये कर लो ठीक हो जाएगा. या फिर,
I agree.
what is your take on it? Do you think that this is something through which we should approach any disability or specifically deafness?
I don't think. I think when somebody tells me, parents or me, take them to this tantric or whatever, or to this particular manta mango, or give them medicines.
And what about medicine? Not only this, what about medicinal cure also?
Yeah, they told me as a child. They used to come to me, and I was like hardly 12, and I was not able to understand all of this medical thing around that. And they were like, ये medicine होती है उनके पास, though, and within few years they'll start hearing. Even as a child, maybe I'll think, oh, my parents can, again hear me or my voice, or I can hear their voice. But still, that's not an approach. If they are born with it, it's completely fine. They are happy with it. We as the children, we are happy with it. To be honest, we live as normal as any other family. If they speak a different language, their native language, we speak also our native language. And our native language is Indian Sign Language.
At the end, folks, it's all about creating an inclusive space. And it's not something that needs a cure to. It's something that needs acceptance, that needs inclusivity and empowerment. Jugneet, do you have anything to say to other hearing people who might not understand what it is like to be a deaf person or to be related to a deaf person?
First of all, if you know somebody around you who's related to a deaf person or is a deaf person, stop feeling sympathy. Stop, feeling sympathetic towards them. Start feeling little empathetic maybe. And, you don't have to learn the full Indian Sign Language. Maybe you don't have to, be related to a deaf person to understand those struggles. But at least we can all learn the basics of it. Basics like the necessary words, like how are you, or the police station or doctors, so that at least they don't have to feel like they're the outsiders, or they are not normal as people say, or they have some kind of a very big disability, even though they don't have any kind of a disability. It's just a language. If we learn French as means that we can go abroad and something like that, you can learn Indian Sign Language as well.
Absolutely. At the end, it's just a language barrier, and language barrier can be done away with. As she said, सिर्फ basic सीख लो, that is enough to build an inclusive space around us. Jugneet, one last question for you. Do you have any message or anything that you want to say to other CODAs?
I understand you have your own journey. I had my own. Somewhere at different levels, we may connect. I feel you still need to reach out to other CODAs so that you can talk about your journey, you can talk about your struggles, and you don't feel like you are alone in this world. We all are there for you. If you ever need to talk to somebody, you can reach out to me at any point of time. And if you feel guilty at any point of time, you feel like they have put so much of burden on you, and you feel like, oh, why have you even thought about it? They're my parents. It's absolutely fine with it. We all have ups and downs in our lives. If our parents are having it, we can also have it. So it's absolutely okay. There's nothing wrong with you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Jugneet.
Thank you.
Both the struggles of somebody who's disabled and somebody who's a relative to somebody who's disabled are genuine. They both need to be heard and both need to be accepted. And I hope that this makes us more sensitive, and this one conversation helps us move a little further towards the entire dialogue and entire process of becoming more inclusive in ourselves and building a more inclusive society. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Jugneet,
Thank you for
being
calling
here.
me.
I'll see you in the next video. Bye.